Hello and welcome to the London Business School Programme Information Session. I'm Nalika De Silva. I'm the Recruitment Manager for Leadership Programmes, so that's EMBA London, the Sloan Programme and the EMBA-Global. I can see that people are still joining, so I'll talk a little slower to allow people to join in this next few minutes. I hope everyone's safe and well, and your families and friends wherever you're based at the moment. So yeah, I'll give you a quick overview at the moment because I'm getting a lot of questions about the EMBA London September deadline. We've got maybe 2 to 3 days to accept further applications for the EMBA London September programme, and then we're moving over to January. So I just wanted to clear up that question at the beginning of the presentation. So yeah, I can see we've got quite a few people joining now, so I'll start. So yeah, today's presentation, it's kind of an overview of the various programmes. I'll talk a little bit about the Career Centre and also the admissions process, and then we'll be joined by Amanjit Singh, who is one of our current EMBA London students who will be there at the end of the session to answer any questions, and myself also if you have any questions. It says networking session on this slide. It's basically networking with me and Amanjit at the end. So yeah, a lot of people, they say to me, you know, why do people do this program? What are the criteria and so forth? So, I mean, one of the first things is for leadership development. So, for example, for the MBA, you might be a middle manager and you want to become a more senior leader. So this program helps you to accelerate into those positions. So obviously that leads on to career acceleration. So people tend to do either an EMBA London part-time or an EMBA-Global part-time whilst working in order to accelerate their careers. So people often stay in the same company and rise the ranks quicker than, for example, if they hadn't done a program. Or for the Sloan program, if you're a full-time studying and you're at kind of director VP level, again, you might want to sidestep into another senior role. Global perspective, so the London Business School is aligned with the Dubai campus, and we also have connections with Columbia Business School and Hong Kong University. So we try to, you know, we have a very global, not only cohort, but our connections as well. Entrepreneurial ambitions, there are a lot of facilities in the school if you want to be an entrepreneur. So we have the Entrepreneur Summer School, which is one of the electives, which you can choose on any of the leadership programs. And that's where you work on a potential business idea and then you pitch it and you can get some funding for your business or potential startup venture. Enhancing your networks, at LBS we have, which I'll talk further about later, but we have over 40,000 alumni worldwide, and if you do the global program you have access to 8,000 alumni because CBS also have their cohort of alumni as well. And yeah, it's kind of like once you join, you just get these kind of automatic connections and access to our database to connect with people around the world and based on their careers as well in terms of what you want to do next. Okay. So yeah, people sometimes say to me, oh, you know, so why LBS? What's so good about your degree and so forth? Well, it's obviously the reputation internationally, like it's the brand, the reputation, it opens doors, and we tend to find that people who've been to LBS, they always, you know, get asked, oh, tell us about LBS. It really does start conversations, and we recruit a very sort of high quality level, we call it. So I usually look at people's CVs and they send them to me, and then I filter through if the CV is good enough. then I'll talk to the person on the phone and find out a bit more. So it's quite, I suppose, quite a rigorous recruitment process, just to ensure that we have the best quality students at the London Business School. Yeah, so the faculty, we've got some world-class faculty, we have some in-house faculty. So for example, Sir Andrew Lickerman, he's actually the ex-dean and he's been associated with the school since 1975. And he's currently an advisor to the Bank of England, and he's become an entrepreneur at the age of 75. So he's a very interesting person to work with. And we've also got people like Linda Grattan. She wrote the book 100-Year Life. Don't know if anyone's read that, about that, you know, we're basically all going to live to 100, so let's make the most of life. She talks a lot about also taking a break, which was my favourite part of the book, having some time off just to ponder and think about your next steps, which is actually part of doing one of our programs as well, having that breathing space to think, okay, I want to do something different now, and before moving on to my next steps. And she also sits on the World Economic Forum, and she does also advise the Japanese Prime Minister. Yeah, and so we also have people that come in, you know, they're not in-house, they come in for, say, days here and there to talk to the class as well. So you'll have a really great time with the faculty here. Yeah, so this is just what I mentioned before, related to our global presence. So we have the campus in London, Dubai, New York and Hong Kong. Yeah, so this is just a little bit more information so you can see where the campuses are. So 154 faculty from 34 countries, 113 alumni clubs. So when you graduate, you can keep in touch with people all over. And as I mentioned, the 42,000 alumni based in 155 countries. I have a question coming through. I just want to make sure it's not a technical issue. I can't actually see that question at the moment. So yes, I'm just going to give you a kind of overview of the various programs. So in the leadership portfolio, we have the EMBA London, EMBA Dubai, EMBA-Global A&E, EMBA-Global Asia, and Sloan Leadership and Strategy. So at the moment, we have 2 intakes for the EMBA London programme, so that's September and January. If people didn't hear me before, if you're thinking, I quickly want to get onto the September intake, you have about sort of 3 to 4 days to get your application in, and then we'll be closing that class and start recruiting for January. Same for the Dubai programme as well. The difference is that the EMBA London, for the first 10 months, you will come into the school every other Friday and Saturday. And for the EMBA Dubai, that's 1 block week each month. Then you'll go on in your second year, or second 10 months, to choose 15 core and 6 to 8 electives. Sorry, I mean 6 to 8 electives in your second year. So that's when it gets a little bit easier with your employer, because you don't need to take such specific time off work. You can, for example, you could do 1 elective in a block week, you can do them in evenings, you can do them in weekends. There's lots and lots of options for the same elective to make it really flexible in the second year. You graduate with an MBA, and the average work experience is 8 to 12 years. So the global, Americas and Europe, so this is based in, it's half the time in London and half the time in New York. So you would kind of do, you know, a block week in London, then the next month a block week in New York, then London, then New York. The intake for this programme for both of the global programmes is usually May, but because of the virus, we've pushed this back actually to next year, to 2021. And we think it's probably going to start in September 2021. Yeah, and again, this program's really varied. You can take electives in Dubai, in Hong Kong, in London and New York. So you have access to kind of 4 networks, and you will graduate from the Global A&E with 2 MBAs, one from CBS and one from LBS, and the average work experience is around the same. And then the Sloan program. So the Sloan program is really interesting. You graduate with an MSc in Leadership and Strategy. It's 1 year full time. And for this, I normally recruit around sort of 15 years plus, and it's for people that are quite, almost at the top of their game. So CEOs, vice presidents, directors. So yeah, it's again, this is you have 10 core and 5 to 8 electives. Yeah. So this is kind of just some stats on the January class. So, how many people do we have? So it's 137 students, 34 nationalities, 36% are commuters, 33% female, 12 years average, and diverse professional backgrounds. EMBA-Global, 28% female, 106 students, 61 cities represented, 36 countries, again, diverse backgrounds, and 12 years work experience. Then you have Sloan 2019 class, so that's 69 students, 24% female, 14 to 30 range of years of experience, 26 nationalities, and 18 years average work experience. Just to let you know, because I can see sort of questions coming through, but I can't actually read them until I stop sharing the presentation. So I will answer any questions at the end live, and I'll also have Amanjit with us, who's an EMBA current student, who will answer any questions you might have as well. So yeah, life beyond the classroom. So this is my favourite bit to tell people. It's the things that you can do outside the programme. So we have various clubs and societies. So you can see on here, there's things like salsa, but we also have really interesting treks. So that means, like the private equity trek. We had people a couple of years ago, they went around various private equity firms in China. And all these clubs are an additional form of networking. The Women in Business Club, that's one of my favourites. They hold a conference every year, and they have some fantastic speakers. Then again, it's an opportunity to network, for you to also get involved if you want to be part of these clubs. And yeah, there's also clubs like the Italian club, the Spanish club, and yeah, really interesting extracurricular activities. And after work each evening as well, for example, if you're full-time, that's great, because you'll be pretty much near the campus the whole time. Or if you're doing the part-time program and you're flying in, you might think, you know what, I'm going to come Thursday afternoon sometimes, just to basically attend some of these clubs. So yeah, the point being that we have events like, for example, CEO of Deliveroo will come on campus and do a chat after work, or from people from Uber. It's just all opportunities to learn outside the program. Okay, so this is something called it's about the GBA. I know a lot of people ask me about this. So the Global Business Assignment. This is part of everyone's program, no matter which program you do. And so it's basically a week-long consultancy project. So you travel to one of these allocated locations. So Beijing, Buenos Aires, Abu Dhabi, Mexico City, San Francisco, and Athens. So you will get to kind of opt for one of these choices, but it's kind of based on a bidding system. So, you know, it's kind of allocated as well towards the end. You'll also be going with other people, so if you're on the EMBA London programme, some of the Sloans will be in your group, some of the Globals will be in your group, just to mix up the variety. And you're assigned a small to medium-sized enterprise, and you have to look at their practices and see how you can improve them and basically make their business more profitable and efficient. And you'll kind of attend dinners as well, with key business stakeholders locally. Yeah. So it's a week long, and it's a really interesting part of the programme. So yeah, as mentioned, if you've got any questions that you want to talk about at the end, please do type them in you can see on the screen, the Q&A box, and then myself or Amanjit, the EMBA alum, who's kindly going to be joining us towards the end, he will help to answer those as well. So the Career Centre. So the Career Centre is a fantastic resource. It's the biggest in Europe. I actually used to work in that department before this department, so I can vouch for how good the careers coaches are. So people say to me, you know, is the Career Centre going to get me a job? The answer is they're not going to get you a job as such, but they will help and facilitate in that process. So as soon as you start, you will have, you'll do like various personality tests. There's something called the NEO, and then you will have one-to-one careers coaching. You'll sort of be assigned to someone, and you can see them and talk about your goals and the things that you want to do next. You might not have any idea what you want to do. I find that with a lot of the Sloan candidates, they just want to join a program but have some element of change. So that's what the Career Centre is fantastic for. And I would say just kind of, you know, really make the most of all the resources outside the program. Like I mentioned, the events, the social groups, and the Career Centre. Sort of look to book your appointment, you know, quite soon after joining. And you'll also have career workshops put into your timetable as well. It's not all down to you to approach them. They will be in your modules as well. And yeah, they have access to recruiters. So some recruiters, they specifically recruit with us. So we have, you know, like a portal which people, the recruiters put jobs on specifically for LBS alumni, because, you know, they only want to recruit from our school. And yeah, I've mentioned the coaching. We also have something called sector leads. So there's one for consultancy, finance, tech, what's the thing called that everyone is really into, the fintech, and yeah, diversified sectors. So that's everything from luxury and retail to healthcare. And so again, the careers coaches can help you with your career. Then you can book an appointment with the sector leads to talk about the labour market, really. Okay, so admissions requirements. So yeah, I mentioned at the beginning, you know, what do we look for? So, you know, academic capability, management experience, and international exposure. I think what's important when I see a CV as well is that I see career progression. I'd say that's one of the most important things. So if I see a CV and someone's been working in the same company for 10 years and they haven't really progressed and they're staying in that same company at the same level, even if they joined as a manager and they're still at the same level, I would probably not say they're not the greatest candidate for LBS. We look for people that have risen the ranks over time, or even if you've changed company, obviously that's fine, but done various things and also progressed career-wise. So application requirements. So yeah, the application form is online, and you can edit and review and submit your application. So you can edit and review as many times as you like. References, we ask for 2 references. One of them, if you're on the EMBA, has to be your current employer to say that, you know, they're happy for you to do the program and you have time off work. And that's something that I'd like to mention as well. If you want to do the EMBA program, you do have to be employed. You can be a freelance consultant, but you can't do the program if you don't have any work. You can do that for the Sloan program, but not for the EMBA London. Working is a requirement. You can also send your CV to me or someone in my team before doing your application, as I mentioned at the beginning, so we can look at the CV, guide you, have a chat with you, and if you've got any specific questions, I can help you with those. Essays, yes, so you'll have to do some essays as well. They're not really about intellectual capability, it's more about your personality. So yeah, bear that in mind. And yeah, I've talked about the references and the GMAT, yes, and EA score. So I would say to everyone, go for the EA test because it takes 90 minutes as opposed to 3 hours. It demonstrates the same quantitative skills that we need to see alongside the GMAT. People say to me, can I have a GMAT waiver? People can have a GMAT waiver or EA waiver if, you know, you've got a degree in engineering, accountancy, and CFA levels. These are all on the website, the exact requirements for a waiver. And transcripts, so this just means your university transcripts, if they're that's like your scores, so we can see what you got for your modules, and also they need to be translated if they're in another language. Okay. So yeah, the stages of the application. So yeah, you'll submit your application. Within around 2 weeks, you will have an interview scheduled. You'll have your interview, and then within another 2 weeks, you'll have a conditional or unconditional offer. So the whole turnaround time is around a month. I mentioned if you want to apply for the September intake for EMBA London, you've got around 3 days. Of course, the process won't be as long to know about that program because we're on fast track for that. So you'll know within 2 weeks for the September. But all other programs, it usually takes a month to complete everything. You might be put on the wait list, you might be encouraged to reapply or rejected, and then you accept the offer, and then you'll be admitted. Yeah, I was just going to say one thing. If you're applying for a Tier 4 visa, it's better to apply in the earlier rounds so that it can be processed for the start of the EMBA program. So if anyone was considering applying in September but they need the Tier 4 visa, it's probably best to move across to the January cohort, and we'll recruit for January from now, and we'll finish in around November time. Yeah, so I'm going to start with our Q&A session now. Not sure if Amanjit is available yet. I told him to come back online at 3:30, so I can start to answer some of the questions. I'm going to stop. I'm just going to let you actually all take a note of these email addresses just before I stop sharing the screen. So this is my contact here. mdsilva@london.edu. Then we have my team here for EMBA, emba@london.edu, Sloan, sloan@london.edu, and EMBA-Global LBS. So let me stop sharing. Here we are. So many questions coming through. Okay, let me just open this. Okay, Okay, first question. What are the statistical chances to get onto the EMBA program? I mean, applicants accepted, thank you very much, just trying to evaluate my chances to get and prepare for the entry exams. I can't really give a specific statistical answer to that, really. It's more about your background. So what I would suggest for you to do is send your CV across to the EMBA-Global inbox, and then we can review, and then we can give you more of a guarantee, really. You know, we can look at the CV and say, yep, you're definitely right for the program. You know, your chances are 85%, for example. Because with the global program, it's a little bit more tricky because it's two schools that have to agree. So they have something called an ADCOMS meeting where the CBS university and our university, they meet and they discuss applicants, whether they're good enough for the program. So it's a very thorough recruitment process, as I mentioned before. Is it possible to do the EMBA-Global without working full-time at a company? How would that work with the visa requirements? No, I mentioned, I think this before, it's not possible to do the EMBA-Global or the EMBA-London without working. Yeah, you have to be working. And I think, yeah, there has to be some kind of proof as well that you're doing a certain amount of hours. Yeah. When will you start recruiting for the EMBA A&E program if it's starting in September 2021? Oh yeah, good question. Amanjit, hi. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing great, thank you.
Do you want to introduce yourself and tell everyone a bit about what you're up to?
Yeah, sure, definitely. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining this info session. So I'm Amanjit Singh, and I'm a part of EMBA 2021, which is basically, it started in last September, and it will finish sometime in the mid of next year. So we have just completed our first year, which is basically all the core courses. And there are about 15 to 16 core courses, which you definitely need to do to move to your second year. And now we have just selected our electives, which is basically based upon your interests, based upon what you want to achieve from this EMBA. You can select 6 to 8 courses, which will happen over the duration of 1 year once you complete your core courses. Just as background, so I work with Google. I'm a data scientist in the legal team. So I have been working in London for about 2 years. Before that, I was working with Google India for about 4 years or so. So it has been an amazing experience, and would love to share more thoughts around it as and when the questions come in.
Thanks, Amanjit. I can see that we've got quite a lot of questions, actually. I'm going to just go through some of the recruitment things that then we'll get on to the interesting questions for you. So it says, when will you start recruiting for the Global A&E program if it's starting in September 21? Yeah, as I mentioned, good question. We'll probably start, we're already accepting applications now, because of course some people thought it was going to start in May. So everyone's more than welcome to apply for that program now. Says, I have 18 years work experience and looking for a full-time experience to immerse myself in learning. I see EMBA programs are part-time and full-time MBA with an average of 6 years. What program would you recommend? Hi Raj, I would recommend the Sloan MSc, but I'd have to see your CV to see your seniority level, because we recruit, as I mentioned, at sort of vice president, director and CEO level for that program. Oh, this is a good one for you, Amanjit. What about study load? I mean, how much time does an average student need to study and complete the EMBA program, including classes? Is it about 20 to 30 hours a week or more?
Okay, so basically it is actually dependent upon how you want to actually take this EMBA. Are you really academically, you want it to be very strong academically, or you want to make the most out of a lot of things, which is basically the clubs, which Nalika mentioned, the extracurricular activities which keep on happening here. So for someone who really wants to score really good grades and want to be on the top of everything which is taught in the class, do some extra studies, yes, I would say 20 to 30 hours per week. But if you really want to maintain a balance between, okay, I want to study, I want to have good grades, but not always just keep running after the grades, and also do some extracurricular activities, I would say couple of hours every day and maybe 3 to 4 hours on the weekends would be enough for you to manage a good A grade in your studies. But along with that, obviously there are assignments which are spaced out in during your course. So sometimes you might get few assignments clustered up for few subjects. So at that time, the workload might increase. But on an average, I would say it would take about 10 to 15 hours for someone who really wants to make the best out of it and do some other activities as well. And probably 20 to 30 hours for someone who really wants to do extra studies, just want to go through each and everything every week and study for the next week as well.
Thanks, Amanjit. I've got quite a few similar questions about the application process, and can you go into more detail about it? Would you be able to talk us through your process?
Yeah, sure. I love to share this story because the application process for me was a bit quick. So just to start with, when I actually got a message from Nalika about this program, and I attended one of these sessions, and I was really interested in doing something more about it, like attending some more sessions. But I had to actually travel to US for work, and I was there for a month. And during that time, I was like, oh, I went for this info session, and I really want to apply for this course. And during that whole trip, I was just thinking about it, but I did not do anything. So as soon as I came back, I was like, okay, I haven't done anything from last 1 month, so I need to get to it. So it was a long weekend in May, and I was like, okay, let's get to it. And I was already way behind the schedule in terms of the application rounds and things. So I literally sat over the long weekend, prepared my application, did everything I had to do, wrote the essays, prepared my CV, and I applied for it. So Monday was a bank holiday, and submitted my application on Tuesday. As I said, my process was a bit not as usual process. And I had already talked to various people in the admissions team, in the recruitment team, and they knew my credentials. So they got back to me in a couple of days and said, okay, would you want to come for an interview? I was like, okay. So they said, there's a session, a similar info session happening, which was more detailed, which was like a day-long session. So when things were all great, we used to do all these in person. So I went to the campus, and they said that, okay, we can, if you are already coming to the campus, can you just interview on Friday? And I was like, okay, I'm just given 1 day. Would it be fair enough for me to prepare everything? They were like, don't worry about it. You have already submitted your application. You just need to be yourself. I was like, okay, let me go and do it and see what happens. So I did my interview on Friday, and it was actually a really one-to-one talk with the interviewer, and they were not actually drilling you to see how much knowledge you have or something, but they just wanted to see whether you have genuinely written your application, what are your motivations, why do you want to be a part of this school, and whether you will be a good fit or not. So the interviews happened, and then probably the next week I got an offer for EMBA. So that was my quick journey, the application journey. But I believe for most of you who would be applying a bit more earlier than what I applied, It will take about a couple of weeks, as Nalika said, to process the application, and then it's good to put as much details in the application as you can. Obviously, I shouldn't be saying this, but you are actually selling yourself to the school. So try to write down whatever best you have done in your career, what things which are more impactful, which show that you have taken the onus of managing things, you have taken the onus to step out of the box and do something exciting. But that doesn't mean that if you haven't done something exciting, your application is any less stronger. So just as I said, like, be yourself, show in the application that you really want to do this and what are your motivations to do an EMBA. And after that, like, once you get the interview call, it's a bit more easier to just show that you have genuinely prepared that application and you are really motivated. So one step which I just missed here was the executive assessment exam, or the GMAT you might take, or any other exam you might take for the assessment. I would also suggest, as Nalika said, like taking an executive assessment because it is a shorter version and a bit easier version of GMAT. That's what I took, and the score or the restrictions which LBS has are not really strict on that. So there's, I think probably it might have changed, but the score of 150 in an executive assessment would take you through to the next level. So don't worry too much about it, that you have to give this big exam and you have to clear it. Just try to keep a balance between your application and how much time you spend for this executive assessment or GMAT exam which you are giving. Because this is not a full-time MBA, like you don't need to score really high to actually come into this program. So I would say application, perform fairly good in the executive assessment exam, and if you are genuinely interested in this program, you'll get through the interview pretty easily. Yeah.
Thanks, Amanjit. Okay, we've got a lot of questions. So regarding diversity, how much of LBS intake is outside the UK versus nationals of countries living in the UK? So we find that for the, like I mentioned before, we really do try to recruit in terms of diversity, be it nationality, work background, male to female. But what I would say is, because this is a part-time program and you've got to travel in every other Friday and Saturday, you see probably the majority are UK and Europe. And then a lot of people want to do this in Asia and the Middle East. So we have the exact same program in Dubai. So they tend to go to the Dubai campus. And for the Sloan program, it's very diverse because obviously you're living in this, you can relocate for 1 year and you just dedicate to the program. So we see from that program, we have people from literally like America, everywhere. I think there was one Australian on the EMBA. Do you have any people flying in from far, Amanjit?
Yeah, I have also heard the stories of someone who flew from Australia for the weekend. But yes, like we do have people flying from a bit far away, like at least for someone like me who lives like 15 minutes from the campus. I believe anyone traveling from even like up north, Leeds or something, is also far away. But we do have people from Dubai, from Kazakhstan, from US traveling about 8 to 10 hours flight. So hats off to those people who are managing like to come to London on Thursday, attend 2 days of lectures and then go back on Sunday. But I think I have never heard them cribbing about, oh, this is very taxing. Everyone gets really involved on Friday and Saturday when they are in the classes. So obviously it's difficult, but people have been managing it. And there are about 30 to 40% of the people who are not living in the London vicinity and are actually traveling 4, 5, 6, 8 hours from outside.
Yeah. And someone's put, which I think you might be able to help as well. What happens if you sign up believing you're going to be based in the UK and able to attend classes for 20 months, but my American employer then sends me to some obscure part of the world partway through, making it hard for me to continue in person? Do you know of anyone that's left halfway through or anything?
I think LBS provides a lot of options to
Yeah, they do.
carry. Yes. So I have seen few people who had like these emergencies, so they were able to defer the program to maybe the next year or the next batch.
Yeah.
And then some people like who really had some emergencies and had to go for a few weeks. Then there were some exceptions which the program office created. And I believe even if you are just situated somewhere else for some time or some part of your EMBA, it's not that difficult to carry it on. As I said earlier, like people are traveling from various parts of the world. So if you are also able to travel into London maybe every other weekend, so people do that as well. Like some people who started in London and then moved somewhere else, they have been continuing the course in a similar fashion.
Yeah. The same person has asked, what happens if you become pregnant during the course and need time off? I think, again, that will be like an exceptional circumstance as well. And we have like a lot of support here, like the wellbeing team, and there's all that kind of support. So I wouldn't worry too much about those kinds of things.
Yeah, like just to bring it out that we have had in last 1 year, we have had 8 or maybe 9 EMBA babies from our class.
Really?
Yeah, a few of them were obviously from guys, but like some of our
Yeah.
classmates, they are pregnant, and I think they might delay it a bit, but I think everything is going very much normal for them, and hasn't caused a lot of trouble to them as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Samanjit. Um, will the January intake programs have an online component? No. What we're seeing at the moment is that there is this fly ban from India and I think America at the moment. But with the January intake, we actually plan to be on campus for the September intake. There's going to be a week for orientation online for the September intake, but then we hope to be fully in person. So January will be a lot easier. I haven't been told that there'll be any online component for January. Sorry, the questions are flicking on and off. How do you access the alumni network? Obviously you'll meet your classmates on the course, but how do you access other LBS alumni? Is there a platform you use to enable people who haven't actually met each other? Amanjit?
Yeah, definitely. There are a lot of portals, and there are a lot of ways of connecting with the alumni. And I think LBS, one of the strongest points about LBS is it provides you an exposure to variety of alumni and variety people from different profiles living in different geographical areas now. So a lot of us, we actually, let's say if someone is planning a startup, we do email on our alumni aliases, like email aliases, and then there are tools where you can actually search for people in particular industry or people in particular geographic areas whom you can contact through emails. And I believe people use that a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And so the next question is, what are the conditions to waive off an EA requirement for the Sloan programme? As I mentioned, it's about having sort of a quantitative background, so an engineering degree, an accountancy degree, CFA level 2 to 5. But what I would do is, in these circumstances, we always have to check the CV. So I would just send your CV across, and then I can let you know for those cases. Can you please explain the recruitment process for Sloan and the timeline for January 2021? So we're still accepting applications for the Sloan programme, and we'll probably start recruiting for that around the end of August. Sometimes the deadline's extended, but if you're coming from somewhere that needs a visa, it's probably better to apply sooner rather than later. Is it as black and white on career progression, or do you look at a plethora of evidence of leadership and management skills? Yeah, it's when I said before about we have to see the career progression. Yeah, the evidence of leadership's fine, but I think it would always be best in these situations for me to just check out your CV and see where you're at, really. Would you suggest that these programs are useful for senior leadership within the real estate sector? Yeah, definitely. We have quite a few people from that background that join the EMBA program and the Sloan as well, actually. So yeah, it's definitely fitting with these leadership programs. Do you have, a lot of people always ask about the EA, do you have a minimum score for GMAT and EA? As Amanjit said, like, it's kind of like a holistic process, really. So we don't just look at the EA score. People do really get caught up on this EA test, and they focus their whole application on, oh my gosh, if I don't get the EA score, it's game over. But it's just not like that at all. So we ask for the EA if you don't have those quantitative backgrounds, but if your score was you know, lower than say 150 and you got 140, for example, it's not like we wouldn't consider you. We would look at everything. So if you do the test and you get, for example, 140, please do submit your score. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for your time. When should we start the application process for next year's January admission? I think you mean for the EMBA. You can start that now. But January applications are open already, and they'll close around, say, the beginning of November. Can you provide more colour around how you assess the application? Do you weigh the varying parts of the application process? Exec assessment versus interview versus essays. As mentioned before, it's a holistic process. It's not a particular percentage weighting on each part. At Amanjit, can you just talk about your experience with COVID at LBS? Has it had an impact with your colleagues? Yeah, could you talk about that, Amanjit?
Yeah, I think this is a topic even our classmates, we have been discussing a lot, and like obviously I can see like some of you might also be apprehensive about the same. So obviously, like when we used to be in the classroom, go there in person every other week, that was the most amazing experience, because then you can just talk to your friends during the breaks, plan events after the classes, and maybe just go out for trips and a lot of other things. But we can't do much about the situation which we are in right now. So we started cribbing about it, but then we realized there's nothing we can do about it. So we started this whole online journey instead of just going into the school, and started having our lectures online. Initially, it was obviously a bit difficult to focus and just sit on your laptop screen for a long time. But I think you then get used to it. And most of our colleagues have found it almost similar experience, or maybe a bit lesser. In terms of like what they are getting from the lectures. LBS has done a great job in actually training up all the professors, their assistants, to be there on these online platforms and deliver as they would deliver in person. But yeah, like obviously there's a bit of lesser motivation to always sit in front of the screen, or for someone like me, like read all the cases beforehand and like raise your hand and answer these questions in the classroom. Right now it's a bit less motivating. Okay, we know like everyone is on the screen. You don't sometimes just feel like raising a hand on a Zoom call and then answering stuff. But overall, if you want to make the best out of it, the experience can be as good as it is in the classroom. But as I said, like if you are a bit demotivated or you don't want to be in front of your screen all the time for 8 hours or 10 hours in a day, it can be a bit different. But I wouldn't say that it's a huge difference. Until and unless you are motivated to do it, it wouldn't cause any harm to you.
Thanks, Amanjit. I have a total of 8 years plus work experience. I'm interested in the Sloan Masters. Within my current experience, am I eligible? I would just say in all these situations where people are sort of typing questions about if they're eligible, please just send the CV across. So for Sloan, it's sloan@london.edu, or for EMBA, it's emba@london.edu. Or you can just send it to me, ndisilva @london.edu, so then I can have a look. Do you accept family business as full-time work experience during the EMBA-Global? Yeah, I think, again, it's about sending the CV so I can have a look. If you're working in a family business, yeah, of course, it is full-time work. So yeah, we would accept that. What's the proportion of students who get sponsored by their company? I'd say the proportion, it's most people are self-funding. Have you experienced that, Amanjit, in your class?
Yeah, I would say like probably 90% of the class is self-funded.
Yeah.
There are few students who have like maybe 50% funding, and then very few, like maybe I would say like 3 or 4 people in my class who are actually fully funded by their company or something like that. And then there were few exceptions as well, like just as an example, one of my classmates, he started using all the techniques and all the good stuff he was learning during the EMBA, and when he took it back to the company and the VP and like the directors, they were really happy with it, the work he was doing. So they sponsored 50% of his EMBA. So these are some examples where you can actually like make the best use of this EMBA and get your companies to sponsor some part of it.
Brilliant, thank you. Do you have a scholarship support for female leaders? Yeah, actually, the scholarships are mainly for women. So we have a scholarship for the EMBA, so it's 50% of like 50% of your fees. We've got some new scholarships. They don't have a specific name, but there's 4 for 20% of the fees. And if you go on the website, I would look as well, because there's, for example, if for the Sloan program as well, if you're of African origin, or I think Egyptian as well, there's scholarships there as well. So just have a little browse. What else was I going to say? Yeah, there's a scholarship actually called the Laidlaw Scholarship, and that's for people who their background, as in their parents come from a background where they weren't in very well paid careers. So they've kind of worked their way up themselves without family money. So if that's applies to you, please do ask us about the Laidlaw. But we do quite a lot of background checks. So we would check to see your family's financial status and so forth, because I think alumni basically fund that, and they really want to ensure that it's going to a person making the best use of the money. So yeah, there are quite a few, and we're actually getting better at LBS. Like the scholarship money has increased, which is like, it's really good actually, because I know there's quite a lot of funding in the American schools. So yeah, the scholarship money is getting more. Can you give some details of the EMBA links with industry and sectors? for example, how is the course content kept relevant with what's going on at the industry at the time? I don't have the information about the course content. Oh. Do you have any of that information, Amanjit? Or is it a bit too obscure?
Yeah, I think like the course content obviously doesn't vary based upon like what's the profile of the class. But one thing I can say is it is curated in a way that it benefits most of us, no matter what kind of background you are from. We have like doctors, people working for non-profits, people working for family businesses, for tech companies, a lot of different profiles. And even though some things might be difficult for, let's say, a doctor, let's say data analytics is difficult for someone who has never studied data or has never studied maths. So like, I think they are still able to cope up with the curriculum, and they are able to make the best use out of it, because they start with very basics and teach you, because you are all executives. You don't have to start doing it by yourself. You have to manage teams and understand certain of these concepts like corporate finance, marketing, and accounting. You don't have to start preparing these balance sheets yourself. The whole idea is for you to just understand what a balance sheet means. What's the budgeting look like when it comes to accounting? What are some of the ways you can promote the marketing for your companies? So I believe the content is so that you can make the best out of it when you actually are in an executive position and you have to guide maybe CFOs or CMOs of your company.
Thank you. We are coming to the end now, so I'm just going to wrap up with a few more questions because I know Amanjit's got to get back. Let me just find the best one. Okay, for anyone, some of these are quite generic, which I can kind of answer all together. So with regard to like financing and scholarships, I would just go straight onto the website and have a look. And no, if you do A&E, you don't get to have access. You don't get to get an LBS scholarship and a CBS scholarship. It will be one or the other. And financial assistance, we usually use a loan company called Prodigy, but this is all on the website under finance. So for questions about visas, again, we usually speak to the visa team about the questions. So we have a whole department regarding visas. Do I see postponement of the final Sloan deadline? No, like I said before, we often extend deadlines a few weeks after. So yeah, it will probably be extended. Oh, this is a good one. I am based in Dubai. Is there an opportunity to do a combination of London and Dubai? Yes, if you want to do, you would always do all your core courses, so your first year in one place. And then for your electives in your second year, you can combine, so you can do some electives in London. Brilliant. I think that will come to an end. But thank you all so much for your questions. I'd say this is the most questions I've ever had actually in an info session. So yeah, thank you for those. You've kept me talking, and Amanjit as well, kept us on our toes, which is always good. And Amanjit, thanks so much for joining us. You've been a great help, and he's helped at other info sessions. So we really appreciate the help from our current students and alumni.
Yeah, my pleasure, and good luck to everyone who is applying. And my last comment would be that don't think too much, just apply, put your application, as Nalika said, like don't worry too much about executive assessment. I think once you start the journey, you will automatically start feeling more confident about it.
Thank you. Thanks so much, everyone, and have a nice week.
Thank you.
Thank you.